Excited to be here with Wes Cash, our newest incoming board member, along with Sarah, who I just interviewed. And they're both, because my background's the same here, actually, because you guys are both out of HSA, although now you have moved on to Stanford Business School after you joined a startup. Really cool, like, post-grad journey for Wes. So I'm excited to dig into that a little bit.
Thanks.
Anyway, welcome. Yeah.
Thank you. Super excited to be here. And I will just say that that background is slightly more mine than Sarah's, just because my office was in HSA Cleaners and hers is on the 3rd floor, or at least it used to be.
She was more corporate.
She was more important than me, for sure. But I got the windows of we got the basement.
Oh, nice. Yeah. So you were running that whole operation, HSA Cleaners. How big was HSA Cleaners, by the way?
HSA Cleaners, we had a team of, it was myself and 3 managers when we started, and a team of about 60 hourly employees. Okay. And we did our year about $1.1 million in revenue.
Oh,
it was
nice.
A pretty sizable operation, especially for learning to run it at 20.
Yeah, that's legitimate. Oh, and by the way, like, shout out to younger Wes for helping to manage the SRBA conference that we held in, like, our first one after forming. And I don't know.
It was March of 2019. It was the end of March of 2019, and it was awesome. That was kind of my first intro to SRBA. And it was a blast. Had a lot of fun, and I think that's the first time I met you.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was really well done. We all had a good time. And it was a great way to kick off the org before COVID hit, unfortunately, and took the momentum. But it was really
imagine
great.
if we knew then what we know now.
Oh man,
it'd be pretty crazy.
That would be crazy. A lot of work to do. Exciting.
Yes.
HSA actually came out great from COVID. We talk about that a lot, but I don't know the details, but I know there was rough patches in there for sure. I mean, everyone was off campus, no revenue coming in at the, for a lot of it. It was they definitely came out strong, which is great. It was brutal, but the revenues have gone up almost double, like 50%, probably 70% increase.
It's wonderful. Every time I go back for an annual or every few years for an event with HSA, I'm always amazed. It's like this business I think we'll get to it, but it's baffling to me how this works, and it just continually works, and it's really amazing.
Well, you know what? Okay, so that leads into the first question I have for you, same one I asked Sarah. I'd love to know what experience at HSA, and then we'll dig into a little bit of your career and then talk SRBA and what your plans are for it. But what experience while you were at HSA, what surprised or shocked you the most? That's the question I have for you.
I guess this is what I was about to get at. So we're thinking the same wavelength. The concept of HSA as a business that has over 500 employees, I think over 600 when I was there, and that was 8 years ago. So
and now I think it's at 900. 8 to 9.
Yeah. And there's like 1,600 students, undergrad students in a class there. So put that into perspective, that's a huge percent of the student body. And you take those students as employees, and they're working at most on 1-year terms in management roles. And this is a business that just keeps growing and growing and growing. And I think what baffles me more and more, the more I get out, what's most surprising is that I'm spending my time post-college in the business world trying to get organizations to run and grow at the rate that HSA has run and grown at since the 60s. And they have the kind of forced constraint of team members leaving every year with no institutional history from students and key managers. And so
turnover, right?
It's baffling. Yeah, I mean, you have people who stay throughout their years, but no one other than a few of the full-time staff members have been there for more than a 4-year time period, and most managers are 1-year managers.
Right. I think I said so. Correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that you either have to move up over or out at the end of each year? Or do some people stay in a specific management role longer than that?
I think some people might, but it tends to be you, or you move over or you move out.
Right.
You know, it's as any organization, it's a funnel, like it's a hierarchy, and so there's fewer and fewer spots. And usually, at least from my time there were always enough spots for the people who were committed and dedicated to staying around, and you kind of create the role based on what's working for the person. But nonetheless, you get people who kind of, I think the majority of managers are first year students, and then they stay a second year, and by the time the second term ends, the president leaves, you have a brand new president in kind of a 1-year term.
Yeah, it's incredible. Huh?
Yeah, it's just a crazy concept. Yeah.
Do you have, so in your head, when you're working with these businesses out in the outside world, although, HSA is in the real world, like you guys have real customers, it's real. But have you come up with an explanation or a way you think about that in your head? Like, how is HSA able to keep running and keep growing when it's so challenging anywhere else, let alone when you're trying to educate? How do you think about it?
I don't think there's one kind of simple answer, but I think the ethos of HSA, the culture of HSA is a huge facet of it, where you have students who come in. It's a very, very much kind of ride or die culture. Like the students who do it are committed to it. And so despite being a growing organization, it feels very startup-y in that you're kind of in it together. You realize you have 1 year, you want to make your mark, you want your metrics to beat the previous year's metrics. There's an element of the culture that kind of helps, I think, shepherd the growth. And then the other element of it is the businesses are really uniquely positioned in providing services that no one else can provide as well, right? Whether it's a school store that, of course, tourists want to buy items from real Harvard students and not from other people in the Boston area. And, of course, the laundry for students is best done, through students who have access to the buildings. So there's elements of that give it kind of structural advantages, I think.
Yeah. So positioning and creating a structural advantage is one of the main jobs, we might say. Could be one of the main
100%.
jobs. Staff that are there to support it over the long term. Yeah. Helping get
100%.
those opportunities locked down.
Positioning the kind of there's the limitation with any organization like this is it's really hard to do things that hurt you in the short term but benefit the organization in the long term, right? Like big capital investments or anything of that nature, because it's 1-year terms and everyone wants their metrics to be the best. And I think that's where having a board and full-time staff members to kind of shepherd the long-term well-being of the organization is key.
Right. Well put. I keep referring to the interview with Seth Godin, but when I was interviewing him, I called out HSA and he was critiquing, finding good things about it. But one thing he said is that over time, what you're doing is you're creating an infrastructure of roads and buildings, like assets, things that stay for a long time. And then what you're trying to do is create an opportunity for students to innovate, leveraging those. And I do think HSA does a great job at that. Like, you take on these bigger businesses and the staff help to create and maintain opportunities. Like Jim recently facilitated a couple of acquisitions and expansion into a new lease. That would be really hard to do without a few years. And then the students just like run with it.
100%. And if you look at HSA's history in the building, when you walk into the building behind you, there's the agencies over time. There's like a mural for each decade. And they change pretty significantly. Like, there was a flight charter business, at some point. I think it was maybe the 60s or 70s, right? Like, that is not a business that HSA is running anymore. And when you're there for 1 year, it's hard to either do the hard job of shutting down a business that's not working, or acquire or start a brand new idea, just from scratch. And so you see it over, 50 years or now almost 75 years of the evolution of the businesses. They've really changed dramatically. And I think, one of the things that the HSA board has been really supportive of over time is just experimenting with totally new, crazy concepts that might be very unconventional compared to the things we've done before. And some of them don't work, probably most, if you look at history, but the ones that work end up becoming, what drives the business.
Yeah. Innovation pays off. It's essential. So you're in Nairobi now, but I'm going to hold off on figuring out why. Although I really want to know why are you in Nairobi? Before we get there, when you were a student at HSA, and we just talked about some of the entrepreneurial inclinations and challenges with it, were you entrepreneurial? Did you want to take an entrepreneurial path? How did you go from HSA to your internship and potential career at BCG and then flip into startup land? How did that happen? Walk us through your thought process. And then the startup that you joined, Claire, and what stage it was at. I'm interested. But what was the process?
Yeah, let's dive in. When I joined HSA, I was looking for a community on campus, I think, more than anything. I joined during my sophomore year, which is relatively unconventional. Okay. I think most students join during their first year. And I hadn't found my thing. I hadn't found, I explored a ton of stuff on campus, found many great friends and communities, but nothing that I was ready to kind of pour my heart and soul into. Yeah. And HSA came at the right time. And I knew I was interested in business. I thought I should do something on campus that would tie to my interests and maybe a professional path that kind of wasn't checking the box during the classroom time. Mm-hmm. And I talked to some upperclassmen friends, and they said, you have to do it. They've done it. It's the best experience. And actually, I think Jim knows this story. But the piece of advice I got right before I decided to join HSA was, there's a guy named Jim. Spend as much time with him as possible, because the more time you spend with him, the more you will learn. And I followed that advice, maybe to Jim's chagrin. I had his extension on phone memorized, and would call him all of the time. But it was great. So I joined HSA.
That's good advice. And, Jim, by the way, if people didn't know, Jim was the staff CEO. I'm not sure the title.
Yeah, general manager, CEO. Yeah.
Yeah. So the full-time role, and now he's on the SRBA board with you.
And still a wonderful personal friend and mentor of mine, which is
awesome.
I'm very lucky to have him in that role. And he comes in a little later in this story, actually. Okay. So I had done my year at HSA and I loved it. I was on the HSA board and in a student board position, and I had caught the bug for business. It was there weren't business classes at Harvard. It's a liberal arts education, and I really loved that about my undergrad experience. But you had to find the kind of professional experiences outside the classroom, and HSA was the way to do it. Mm. And so I talked to the upperclassmen, many of the same upperclassmen who gave me the advice to join HSA. And a lot of them were trying out consulting or trying out entrepreneurship or investing. And I knew I wanted to be building something. I loved that about HSA. I loved the long hours in the basement behind you. And so I figured being closer to the action is what I'd prefer. And so decided to shy away from investing and into building things. But first I felt like I needed to get experience at a larger scale, professional experience. And so that's what made me decide to go after consulting for my kind of big internship before senior year. I ended up spending it with the Boston Consulting Group in their New York office. And I had a great experience. Moved to New York for the summer, a little closer to family. I got to work in insurance and healthcare and private equity. And, I got a return offer and decided to sign it and was ready to return. And that was the summer of 2019. So I was supposed to return in, early fall, I think August of 2020. And we all know what happened between that timeline.
Oh,
and so,
yeah, right. COVID.
Yeah. I know. We all try to forget it. I don't know that I ever will.
I actually, now that you mention it, I'm much happier when I don't remember it.
100%. But yeah, I graduated, from my family living room in the suburbs of New York, and was home. And right around that time, BCG sent me an email and said, you're supposed to start in August. We're not sure what the economy is going to look like. We're pushing out everyone's start date a few months, come in October.
Oh.
And I said, okay, well, great. I have more time with family, but what am I going to do with the rest of these 5-6 months? I can't travel like I wanted to. I'm not going to start work. I can't go out and see friends, and so how am I going to spend the time? And right at that time, I was considering applying to some of the deferred admission programs for business schools. And I figured if I went to business school, I might want to try something entrepreneurial after. And kind of forewarning for where the story is going. And I said, well, why don't I try something now in these few months that are essentially freebie months, right? Like if everything kind of goes wrong, it doesn't matter. It's
nice.
I'm home.
Yeah, so you've got your job lined up, and you said, well, hey, what's right here? It's a few months I can play around with. That's cool.
Exactly. Yeah. And so as any HSA alum or student-run business alum would do, I looked at the network that I could leverage there. And so, I knew I wanted to try a startup during that timeline. Had 5 months to do it. And so I went on LinkedIn and I filtered for alum of HSA who were doing something in the entrepreneurial ecosystem. And the first hit I found was Claire. And it checked all the boxes of what I was looking for. So Claire's a fintech, which was really interesting.
Person, but a startup.
Not a person, a startup. Claire, yes, very confusing. It was mission driven, just like HSA, which really resonated with me. And it was tiny. They had just closed a seed round. The first hire was a former HSAer. And so I got on the phone with him and I made my pitch. I was like, look, I got 10 weeks, 12 weeks, max 14 weeks to kind of explore things. Can I join you? And they said, look, we'll take you for a 10-week internship. It's like, perfect. Long story short.
Claire was seed at that time. And in 2019, I'm not sure, is seed what today is pre-seed maybe? Like I'm just trying to, in my head, like how much revenue?
They raised there was no revenue for sure. We were pre-product. There was no product.
Pre-product, right.
We had 2 engineers who were contracted at the time when I joined, and the founders. And then they hired one generalist who was the former HSA, Lance, who connected me to the organization.
Oh, got it. Okay, so they were tiny. And how much did you say they raised for their seed?
I think they raised like $4 million at the time, which was a really good fundraise at that time. Yeah. And luckily closed it just before COVID.
Yeah. And they were, sorry, now I'm like directing too much, but yeah, what were they doing?
No, it's good. I went on a monologue. I get so excited to
I saw that you, I apologize. Yeah. I saw that you joined Claire and I was stoked because I really loved the mission. It resonated with me a lot. I thought it was super cool, like project to be working on. Now it sounds like that was kind of icing on the cake because you were in pursuit of an entrepreneurial experience.
Exactly. And the mission, I think my desire for having an organization that was mission driven was tied back to my time at HSA, where I kind of caught the bug, not just for building, but building with a purpose, right? Like all of the money that we made at HSA eventually went back into student wages. And that was really inspiring for me. I got to be a part of the kind of strategic vision setting process when I was on the board. And that also got me excited about seeing kind of mission and bigger purpose. And so, Claire's mission is really focused on financial freedom for America's workforce. And the product that we were offering, or at the time planning to offer, because it was pre-product when I joined, was effectively a free alternative to payday loans for America's workforce. And this product became all the more important as soon as COVID happened, when we had essential workers out there and was struggling just as much or even more to make ends meet. And so, our product was a loan that employees can take underwritten based on their hours that they've worked, and it would be a free loan. So we wouldn't charge them any fees or any interest to take the loan, and then they would repay it when their paycheck kind of came in 2 weeks later. And it was really this twist on the idea that every day when you finish work and you don't get paid, for another week or two, you're giving a free loan to your employer, and you need that money So let's see if we can kind of change the way in which pay can work in America.
Wow. Yeah. So it's a wild concept to me where it's like, hey, a lot of people at the bottom, hourly workers typically, they really need cash as soon as they can get on it because bills are popping up in the middle of the month. They really are paycheck to paycheck. So that idea that, hey, you work today, here's your check, and Uber can do that, I think. That's awesome and makes tons of sense, and people love it. And yeah, I see how you get that to happen. It's a different way of thinking about it. But you're basic, in a way, are you like just a much better alternative to payday loans? Like it's like a whole different game, but it is technically seems similar.
Yeah, I mean, look, the loans that Clara offers and offered when I was there are 0 interest, right? And so it's a free alternative. But what we wanted to push back against was payday loans are predatory in their very nature of how they're created.
What is their
they have
typical
such high
rate? Dozens, right?
It's hundreds.
Wow.
100% APR. And I think the average payday loan is renewed 7 or 8 times. I mean, some crazy statistic like that. Just to put that into perspective, you take a payday loan and then on payday, you don't have enough to cover the payday loan plus the interest. And so you just carry it over and over and over again. Mm-hmm. And this isn't affecting a small slice of the population. I mean, the vast majority of Americans don't have enough in savings for an emergency expense. And that's something that came up all the time at Claire was we'd hear from customers who would talk about, how our product helped them get to work when they had a flat tire and get their kids holiday presents, which was one of the most heartwarming emails I ever read. So it was meaningful for sure.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Okay, so you were looking at BCG. You said, hey, let me get some entrepreneurial experience for a few months. You ended up at Claire, cool, mission driven, and not to spend too long on this thing, but that changed your mind. You decided to stick around. It opened the door to a different way of life that you could take on. And now you're at the end of a few years that you stayed at Claire and you've moved back to your Stanford MBA. But yeah, what was the experience that just made you decide to stay there instead of returning to BCG?
Yeah, Claire was doing well as a business. It was growing. We were expanding the team. But I think more than that, every startup ups and downs, and Claire had its fair share of both when I was there. I was having fun. I was energized by the people I was working with. I was like looking forward to going to work every day. It very much reminded me of my favorite days at HSA. And I felt like walking out on something that could be such perfect timing and really fell into my lap in an opportunistic way. Would be something that I would regret. And it was not an easy decision. I took months to come to this. I kept extending my time at Claire and pushing back BCG. But the role of mentors came in quite key here. Jim being one of them, the SRBA board member, but also the partner I had worked with at BCG. He said to me, I shared with him the situation, and he said to me, "If I were you, I would go to Claire. BCG is going to be here. Consulting has been around for a long time. It's going to be. If you want to get back into consulting later in your career, you can. But how many times can you jump on as one of the first employees at a fast-growing startup? I mean, it's rare." And that gave me the courage to make the jump.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I love like that you're leaning on these mentors, getting great advice. I also think something that stands out is the idea that once you go into entrepreneurship, you can't go back. I think there's a lot of truth to that because you get a lot of diversity of exposure, ideas. You get to really use your brain full blast in a variety of ways. There's a lot of adrenaline, things like this that people appreciate about entrepreneurship. And once you're exposed to it, it is hard to let go of that feeling. And I think that's a big part of what SRBA does too, where any of our members, we're giving students a chance to feel and experience that. And I think it's significantly more likely that they return to it in the future. Obviously, you're one example, but
it goes even a step further, if I can. When I first joined HSA, I sat down with the president who hired me, And I said, I'm a little nervous about the time commitment because I'm interested in other clubs too. And, I haven't fully found my community. I think HSA might be it, but I don't know. And what if I want to do other stuff?
Yeah.
And he said to me, you can try to do other stuff. And if you make it a priority, you will be able to. But I promise you, once you try HSA, you're not going to want to do anything else anymore. He said the energy and the speed at which we move, the effectiveness of our meetings, it's going to make every other meeting feel painful for you. And I think the same thing holds in entrepreneurshap. I mean, when you go to corporate, which I've spent some time exploring, and who knows, maybe I'll end up back there. There's pros and cons, but one of the differences is the agency and the kind of shared enthusiasm that you have. And just like with SRBA organizations, you catch the bug.
Yeah. They get there's no doubt you get a lot of momentum, a lot of speed that picks up one time. This is my last statement. And then I would love to dig into your switch over to Stanford and why you're in Nairobi now. But yeah, what happened to me was several times in my life, I've been, fired or like reprimanded harshly for moving too fast. And, partially in academia, partially in another job where it's just, you take the momentum that's required to succeed in an entrepreneurial capacity. And when it comes to a larger corporate structure, you have to adapt a lot. It's a totally different way of being. And I think you're calling that out.
Yeah, it changes from doing what's right. The problem is how do you find the right answer is the question in entrepreneurship, to how do you get everyone else to see and align on the right answer, at least is in bigger organizations, it becomes more and more important. Right. And
politics,
that's a blessing.
To it. It's like, it's not a bad thing, it's baked into it, but it requires a very 100%. Different approach. Yeah.
And you have to slow down.
HSA and the student and business, is there kind of a blend? Like you get a peer or a window into the more corporate structure, while at the same time you're moving quickly with the intent of keeping the business alive, providing maximum value to the customers. All right, I could just go on about all the good things.
I mean, you and me both.
So when you how did you decide on Stanford for your new journey, and how did you get in? I'm sure a lot of people are going to listen to this and be like, "Oh, I got to talk to Wes. He's got to tell me the trick for getting into Stanford's business program. It's a great business program."
I got lucky. I feel like in the series of my life, I've gotten lucky a lot of times. Admission to Harvard and then to Stanford has certainly been two of those times, and being kind of born at the time into the place and the family and where I was in the world at the time is certainly another one of those. And so I feel a lot of gratitude for a lot of things, and those are all some of them. I knew I wanted to consider business school when I was an undergrad. It was a very common thing for HSA alum to go back to school. And so I had applied to the deferred admission programs at some of the top business schools during my senior year, and I had gotten into Stanford GSB, the Graduate School of Business.
Okay.
I knew that it was a great school. It's top ranked, and I was quite excited about the prospect. And I knew I might want to go back to business school, so I took the opportunity and effectively bought myself an option call, at 22 to go back to school in a few years. And that was great. And I didn't think about it for quite some time. And every year, the GSB would reach out and say, "Hey, are you coming? Are you coming?" And, as always, I was like, "I'm having a great time at Claire. We're growing. I'm having fun. Let me keep on track with Claire." And after 4 years, they reached out and they said, "Last chance. It's a 4-year deferral program. If you don't take it now, you can't come." And that prompted a bunch of reflection, and it was a really tough process for me. I knew that it would be hard to leave Claire. It felt like my own baby. I wasn't one of the founders, but I joined shortly after them, and I feel like as bought in and as close to them as I could be. And so it was certainly a tough decision-making process, but at the same time, I knew that I would regret not going back to school at some point. Yep. And if I didn't do it then, I wouldn't have done it. And so
why would you regret not going back to school?
because at my core I'm a nerd, but maybe a step further than that is, I think I thrived in a residential academic community, which is a really fancy way of saying I thrived being around a bunch of people who were as engaged in the ecosystem as I was. It's the same thing that draws me to entrepreneurship. I think is what drew me to really like undergrad. And I was longing for that again, especially post-COVID. And I knew that if I went to Stanford, I would have access to that. It's a small class. It's about 430 people per grade. So there's really a communal element, and I missed that opportunity to. I knew I'd miss the opportunity if I didn't take it to be back in that residential environment. And I was right. I love it.
Community is a major hook for everything. The businesses that we're doing, what we do, but also you get maybe you get some questions answered. There's some unanswered questions you wanted to dive into, and it's a chance to find out or spend some time reflecting, nerding out on them.
Exactly.
In that way, maybe that's part of what got you in Nairobi, or
it is exactly what got me into Nairobi. There's a few macro trends that came up in a number of classes during my first year at business school. One was the global aging of population. One was the climate changing and what that's going to do to our world. And the third was the population demographic shift to be more and more in Asia, specifically South Asia and Africa. And prior to my time at Stanford, I had never been to Asia and I'd never been to Africa. And so I spent a lot of time over winter break traveling through Asia. I did a school trip to China. I did some personal travel in Japan and Southeast Asia. And I got to explore just a glimpse of what life is like there. But I still hadn't explored Africa. And it felt like, to me, if I want to be a business leader in a world that's growing and changing, I should, understand what's coming. And with, 50, I think it's like 50% of the working age population in our lifetime is going to be in Asia and Africa. And so I wanted to spend some time exploring, this part of the world. At the same time, I had never, at the same time, I had taken some coursework in business models in emerging markets. And, to some extent, every business in an emerging market is an impact business, because if it does well, it creates jobs and helps economies flourish. And so there's an energy around Nairobi, back to the community element of people who just genuinely care about building cool businesses that also help. It's called Silicon's Savannah, which is really fun. And it's been a great community here.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think to your point earlier, the demographic shift is huge. If people haven't seen, I would encourage you to take a look at those. And as I'm sure you've explored, but those graphs where it kind of shows the population of the West over time and the population of the East and how much I'm trying to get my lines to match with the camera, but
it mirrors. Yeah.
Yeah. And now there's no way out of it. The US and the West is just going to be tiny compared to the East in not many years. We're really already past the point of no return there, because of birth rates is the major factor. I'm reading that right?
Yeah. And aging populations, but I don't see it as a good thing or a bad thing. I don't know that ties to any important economic indicators alone, population, other than it's a thing. Of course, aging populations and declining populations aren't good for economies, but relative to where East and West is, I think it's not as important as the fact that global businesses are going to need to be more global and think about serving communities that they didn't serve before, because the population is changing.
Yeah, so it's not inevitable that the folks that you're with, the community that you're with in Nairobi, is going to succeed just because they're young. In fact, that's where so much more, it's so much more important that you are finding success or creating a resilient economy or an expanding economy there, because there are a lot of people that need to be employed and taken care of.
And historically, that's not been the case. Not to get into politics, but while I've been here, there's been some of the largest protests in Kenya's history, including the last few days. I've been working from home because we've been told it's not safe to go outside, and it's led by Gen Z folks who are unhappy with the state of the economy and their employment opportunities. So it is certainly not a given that growing population means growing economy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's super interesting and helpful. So are you there? Are you working with someone or volunteering?
Yeah, I'm working with a company called Zeraki, Zeraki. And Zeraki is an education technology platform. So I was interested in ed tech. My background obviously is fintech, and I knew I was interested in education because it's clearly played an important role in my life. And I found through a friend of a friend of a friend, I found Isaac, who's the CEO and one of the co-founders of Zeraki. And so I've joined them for about 8 weeks to actually, funny enough, work on launching some financial services products to make school more affordable for parents who might be living in paycheck to paycheck or of the equivalent and not have the funds saved up to pay for tuition. So there's some full circleness here as well.
Common themes. That's great. And it gives you a chance to really contribute a lot. Awesome.
And learn a ton.
Really cool. Yeah, right. Okay, so I think drawing to the conclusion of this brief interview, which we ran over time, I've had a pretty good record recently of maintaining.
I'm sorry to ruin it.
No, that's okay. The last thing I wanted to talk to you about was your move into the board of the SRBA. I would love to hear in your words, for the folks that might be interested in why you find some interest or alignment in the mission of the SRBA. It seems pretty straightforward, but our mission is to, we really want to make a difference in the number of students that are learning by launching and leading organizations and the quality of the experience that they're getting. So what inspires or excites you about that? Or what draws you into it? And then we can talk about what initiatives you're taking a special interest in.
Yeah, to the first question of what drew me to be involved on the board, when there was an opening, it seemed like a great opportunity to get back involved with SRBA just a few years later. I think I talked about how I feel extraordinarily lucky for many different facets of my life, and one of those is finding HSA and the SRBA and the community of other students experimenting with entrepreneurship across different universities when I was a student. And so joining the board felt like an opportunity to help make sure that continues to happen for other people and to give back to some extent. I feel like so much of the learnings I've had at my time at HSA and when I was a student have compounded to get me to where I am now. And I really feel confident that I wouldn't have been on the same trajectory if it weren't for that. And so the opportunity to help make sure it happens for other people and to fulfill this mission of getting more and more students involved with quality experiences is top of mind for me.
That's awesome. Yeah, thank you. I'm really excited for you to be joining in this way. And that by the way, I'll note at this point that people who may have some questions for you or want to connect, you're in the Slack channel now, I think.
I am in the Slack channel.
So they might ping you there.
Please do. Say hello.
Okay, good. And also, well, you probably won't be able to make it to the expo this year at Penn, but we'll have it on your calendar. Maybe there's some chance that works out, but they'll definitely be able to.
I'm always looking for more reasons to get to the East Coast to see family, and it's hard to think of a better reason than Surge. That would be great. And one of the things I'm working on the board is the expo, and so definitely want to be a part of it.
Yeah, tell us about that. What were the initiatives? I know that there were two main things that you were going to lean into. What were those?
One is the expo. I got to plan one of the earlier conferences during my junior year in college, and so felt like that was a great experience and wanted to continue to be involved with that on the board. And the second is there's I think an opportunity to map on what we're doing with SRBA and with Surge and with student-run businesses more broadly to what's happening in Silicon Valley and the venture ecosystem and the entrepreneurial ecosystem outside of universities. There's a lot of investors that are trying to bridge that gap, but I think many of them are coming at it from an investment angle versus maybe a mentorship angle or an opportunity to make sure the skills that are being taught in these experiential programs are mapping onto what entrepreneurs are finding most useful after. And so I'm looking forward to kind of bridging or trying to bridge that gap and using the fact that I'm living in Palo Alto right now as a convenient excuse to help bring Silicon Valley to SRBA and vice versa.
Yeah, that's fantastic. We're really excited about both of these. And I know we have a few initiatives that we'll dig into in our first board meeting with you later today / your time midnight.
Midnight. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Really excited for it.
All right. So I think I will go ahead and we'll bring this to an end. We could go on forever, but I'm going to talk to you more soon and give you a chance to get some, I don't know, whatever you're going to do with 30 minutes before. Thank you, Wesley, so much. Yeah. Thank you. And we'll talk soon.
Thank you for having me. A real honor.
Right. Talk soon. Absolutely.